And as we just alluded to, this weekend will mark 20 years since those 9/11 attacks, and those attacks that essentially changed the U.S. forever. Those alive at the time all have a story of where they were and what they were doing when they learned the news. But for some, it's even more personal because they know people who were where the attacks were happening. WCNC Charlotte's Tanya Mendis shares a story of a former teacher who was among those waiting to find out if their loved ones survived.
Beverly Snowden always found a way to bring history to life in her 7th grade classroom.
I loved all the children.
But history on its own came barging through her classroom door on September 11th.
They motioned for me to step out the door and talk to them outside the door.
Snowden heard the news of the attack on the Twin Towers, knew she had to somehow go back and face her students. But this class was different.
I proceeded to go back to the classroom, which included my son.
Her son Trevor among the kids in her class that year, and his whole world was about to be turned upside down.
My younger brother was in the Pentagon, actually where the plane hit.
Snowden's baby brother, her son's favorite uncle, missing. The plane crashed right into the section of the Pentagon where her brother worked every day.
I knew that my younger brother might have been among those who died, and there was no way to reach him.
For hours, Snowden had to continue leading her students through their own confusion and pain while quietly dealing with her own.
My son in particular coming up to me as his mother and also his teacher, wanting to know about his uncle, whom he loved and loves today so much.
It wasn't until later that night that she found out her brother had survived.
Thank God he lived through that day.
Years later, the war on terror, still personal for Snowden. Her brother went back to work at the Pentagon, and her son grew up to be a Marine.
He was a Marine because he wanted to be one of those that stands up for our country, and 9/11 had something to do with that.
As for Snowden, she believes her reason for teaching was to be there in that moment for her children in the classroom, and for them to be there for her.
And that day, I felt like I was called to be there to support the students, not just as a teacher, but as a mother, as a friend. And they supported me too.
In Hickory, Tanya Mendis, WCNC Charlotte.
It's a really particularly harrowing situation to be in because I feel like that day, nobody really knew what was going on for a really long period of time.
Yeah, and how do you explain that to the children, especially little kids in classrooms? So the teachers really had their hands full that day, really of all age groups, everywhere.
Yeah, some tough decisions. You know, how am I going to broach this topic with these kids?